They are getting finally underway. Just earlier today, we saw the Blue Impulse, that's the Japan's self-defense force aerobatic aeroplane team, and they flew across the city, drawing the Olympic rings in the sky, echoing the Tokyo Olympics of 1964. However, it's a very different mood here, and it's fair to say that opinion is divided. Some people have been protesting for several months against holding the Olympics during the pandemic, and today we did see further protests. There are protests planned for outside the Olympic Stadium where the opening ceremony is being held. So very unusual compared to normally the cries of celebration. But there are, of course, fans who are feeling a little bit disappointed as domestic spectators have been banned, but they are also gathering near the stadium, taking photos from the outside and trying to cheer on the athletes from a distance.
And because of COVID-19 restrictions, the opening ceremony will see athletes parade in an almost empty stadium. Now, this is a testament really to how COVID-19 has changed the game and changed everything.
Absolutely. So the organisers for several months have been trying to put in place strict anti-COVID-19 measures. They drew up what's been called the playbook. This is a list of rules and regulations, and there's one for the athletes, for other officials and staff, also for the press. And the athletes and officials coming from overseas, they're supposed to be kept in an Olympic bubble. There is evidence that that bubble is broken, that there has been people walking around the city mixing with the local population, which is something they very much wanted to avoid. Also at the airport, there's been some difficulties with trying to keep fans, eager fans, away from the athletes arriving. Reports of autographs and fist bumping, which of course is not an activity encouraged during the COVID-19 situation. And then we saw the absolutely unprecedented decision just in the past couple of weeks to not even allow domestic spectators to come. There are two prefectures here in Japan that still have very limited numbers. For example, in Miyagi Stadium, there's been some soccer matches, football matches taking place, and they had up to around 2,000. But it is a completely different games, and it's going to impact the opening ceremony this evening. We're not going to see any large-scale choreography and dancing, and the words that have been bandied about to describe it looks set to be a very muted affair.
And athletes are continuing to test positive for COVID-19. So how has this affected the athletes? What are some of their concerns?
Well, yes, there are currently 106 confirmed COVID-19 cases since July the 1st, people who are associated with the Games. In fact, just today, 19 of those were confirmed. There is a worrying trend that does seem to be increasing. However, organisers say that out of the thousands of people who've come into Japan first, that represents small number. As for athletes testing positive, well, there have been several who've tested positive before they've even been able to arrive in Japan. So they have to undergo 2 tests within 96 hours before their departure. So many athletes' dreams, unfortunately, have ended there and taken off. But then on arrival in Japan, there have been several cases as well. What happens in that case is athletes immediately have to isolate. If they test positive, they move to a fever clinic and then test positive again, or other facility where they isolate. There's no clear-cut rules when they'll be able to leave that isolation and be able to compete. Some have already withdrawn straight from the tournament. Some are waiting to see if they can test and be allowed to rejoin. But the biggest point is close contacts. Athletes around them have come into close contact. They must test negative 6 tournaments so they can still compete. Was made so they can continue competing, and it was put into practice on Thursday evening when South Africa played Japan. Of the South African team had been designated a close contact, but they fortunately tested negative and were able to go out and rejoin the competition.
All right, Phoebe, I'm going to have to let you go because the sound is not the best there. But thank you so much for your update, and we do appreciate your time. And that was our correspondent, Phoebe Amoroso, speaking to us live from Japan, wherein the opening ceremony of the Tokyo Olympic Games will be underway shortly.